Are you looking for videos about HVAC? Are you tired of scrolling through videos that you never really seem to get what you're looking for? Maybe you're a technician looking for some information, looking to join the trade, or maybe you're a homeowner that needs a little bit of advice. Either way, Andy's Corner HVAC is your one-stop place for all of that. So I want to say thank you for watching the videos. I want to say thank you to all the current and future subscribers out there. I want to remind everybody to be looking for the books from Andy's Corner HVAC. Now enjoy your video.
Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Corner HVAC. I'm glad you joined me today. Got a couple things to talk to you about, but first I wanted to say thank you to all the current and future subscribers out there. It really does mean a lot. All the likes, the shares, the comments, the stuff like that I get. I get to talk to people from all over the place, and I think that's awesome. So keep the comments coming. I enjoy the conversation and dialogue. So as far as today, I want to talk a little bit about geothermal loops. This stems from a video that I did last week, and I talked to several different people through the comments about geos and about some of the loop systems and things like that. But one individual had recommended maybe doing a video on just talking about the different types of loop systems that were out there. So, in our area, or normally, we see four main types of loop systems out there. Now, that doesn't mean that those are the only fashions that you can have a loop system put in. Because it depends on the area. If you're in the Rocky Mountains, well, you got a lot of rock to deal with to either trench, drill, bore, whatever it is. Just same as, in the Midwest, it's we don't have as much rock. Or you get down south and you've got sandier soils. So at that point, it's kind of, you're dependent on what your area is as far as what kind of loops they can put in for you. Most areas, they can always get loops in one way or another. The different types, I say four different types. They are doing some different things out there with directional boring and some things like that, to where they're being able to do some things that weren't possible in the past. Now, I am a little old fashioned. I'm used to seeing a well driller, I'm a little old-fashioned. I'm used to seeing a well driller truck come in and bore holes in the drill holes in the backyard kind of thing. So, I don't know a whole lot about the directional boring, but I know a lot of them are starting to do that. So, and I think it's time saving. It's more efficient as far as your dollar, what it costs to put it in, that kind of thing. So, they are doing a lot of that these days. So things are changing a little bit. But, I say there's four types. Really, there's three main styles of loop systems, and then you have the option of open loop or closed loop. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of open loop systems. Now, there's probably gonna be a lot of people on there knock me about, well, you need to be using it, there's water there, use it, all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get the premise of open loop systems, but I'm not a fan. I've seen too many failures, especially in this area. Like I said, we're in the Midwest. I see a lot of issues where people have done open loop systems. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be used anywhere. There are other areas that maybe open loop systems do well, but I can't say that I have seen it be beneficial in our area. There are a few around, not many. There are not many contractors in this area that do them, but there are a couple. There's a small town that's probably maybe 50 miles from where I'm at, and they claim there's a big aquifer underground there, and there has been a few contractors that they insist on open loop systems, because what the open loop system does is basically you drill down and you are pulling water out of the groundwater or out of a well, something like that, and it comes in the house, goes through your geothermal, just like we talked about in the last video, and then it dumps back out somewhere in the yard, in a ditch, in a pond, something like that. To me, I'm just not a big fan of it. That's personal preference. Like I said, there's a lot of people out there that use them. Personally, I have just seen too many issues with open loop systems. I like the traditional closed loop system, which that's what most everything, at least in my area, is. Or I would say at least 95% of them are all closed loop, to where you have a closed pressurized loop system that has water antifreeze mixture in there, and the pumps are inside and pumps that water through the ground into the Geo, through the Geo, and back out, and just makes the loop over and over and over again. So you're reusing the same water pretty much all the Geo's life. Now, they do have antifreeze in there. In a lot of areas, they use methanol, and in some areas, they use Environol. It is basically just an antifreeze. Now, it is a very specific antifreeze. You don't want we're not pouring RV antifreeze or car antifreeze or something like that in there. It is either methanol or environol, because those have a good heat transfer properties to them. So it does work, but they're usually antifreeze down to where you can get down below zero and they're not going to freeze. Because closed loop systems can get cold sometimes in the wintertime. On average, if the loops are done right and they're big enough loops for the house, things along those lines, usually I have seen them under 30, but it's kind of rare. Those are usually cases where they are running the house very, very hard in the wintertime. If it's, say, 10, 20 degrees outside and they run their thermostat at 78, 82 degrees all winter long, that Geo runs hard. It moves a lot of water. It moves a lot of water through that Geo, which means it's taking a lot of heat out of that water and out of that ground. So you can get cold, but it does have to have an antifreeze for that. Around here, we don't see any kind of real low temperatures where anybody's going to have to worry about loop slushing or anything like that, they call it. So it's just not one of those things we see around here. But closed loop systems do have to have antifreeze. They do well, all that kind of thing. So as far as your closed loop systems, then it comes into the three normal types that you see. Because I guess first we need to talk about how many loops you have. On average, now this is average. There are different situations that require different attention, things like that. But normally you have one loop per ton of geothermal that you have. So if you got a 4-ton geo in your house, you've got at least 4 loops out there. There are some contractors that will put in what they call fat loops, which sounds really offensive, doesn't it? It's a fat loop. Whatever, makes sense. Either way, they put in, maybe an extra loop where the drillers will do your 4 loops and then put in an extra one, make it 5, or maybe they'll do like 4.5, something like that. Basically, it gives you more capacity. In a lot of cases, it's not needed, but if the option's there, hey, why not? So you have either way, you have 1 loop per ton. So remember that with all these different types. The verticals, what it is you've got 2 pipes that come out of the house. One's an in, one's an out. It comes to what they call the header pit. There's basically a header manifold there that all your loops come into. So branching off of that, you've got 1 loop that goes out and goes straight down. The average vertical loop in most circumstances is usually 150, maybe 175 foot down, and then back up. And both those lines come to the manifold or the header to be recirculated. Now, as far as how deep they go is also dependent on your area, what they can drill into. If they start drilling down and they hit rock and they're unable to get through it, or it's too hard to be able to get through it, they may change up and do something different. So when I say 150 foot down, that does not mean all of them are 150 foot down. There are different occasions that require different measures, so it just kind of depends on what you're dealing with. But that's the average. If I guess go with best case scenario would be, be able to drill right down, have no problems, and right back up, that kind of thing. So, and then you have one of those for every ton of geo that you have. And then you have horizontal loops. Horizontal loops have the same kind of thing where it's got 1 pipe in, 1 pipe out, comes to the header pit, and from there it branches out and they run horizontally. Usually they put them in with a trencher. They are doing a lot of directional boring now, so you may have that occasion where that happens in your area. It just kind of depends on the loop drillers themselves, what they do, how they do. Traditionally, they were always trenched in. On average, they run out 250 foot and 250 foot back per loop. And again, 1 loop per ton, just the same as the verticals. And then you have aqua racks, or a lot of people call them pond loops. If you have a pond that is deep enough, you can put aqua racks in there. Me personally, I like the idea of pond loops a lot, but you have to have a deep enough pond. There are statistics out there saying that you can go in a fairly shallow pond, as long as you're like that 8-10 foot down. Me personally, if I talk to anybody that's doing a pond loop, I tell them that pond needs to be at least 18 to 20 foot deep out there in the middle where these aqua racks are going to go. At that point, you know you're down low enough to where the temperature is going to be the same all the time. You don't want to do it in some small pond that's going to freeze or something like that, where it's going to freeze down deep enough that you are not going to be able to pull any temperature out of that water. Because the colder that water gets on the outside of the pipe, that's the less heat that it can draw. The water inside the pipe can draw out of it to be able to move that heat back into the house. So I say 18 to 20 foot in a fairly good sized area of a pond. That way there's no chance. But that's me. There are some people out there, actually, water furnace. I'm a big fan of water furnace geothermals. I'm not a spokesperson for water furnace by any means, but working in all the different brands, I do like water furnace. Either way, my whole point was that they do say that you can still get efficiency out of them in relatively shallow ponds, like 8-10 foot. Personally, I wouldn't try it. Loops cost too much to do it wrong the first time and then have to go back and do it again. The price for loops is going to be dependent on your area. Across the nation, it is different prices everywhere you go. So if I tell you it costs $3,000 per loop, I could be way off in your area. Around here, I'd say a good average is probably 2,000 to 3,000 per loop. So you're looking at 2,000 to 3,000 per ton for the loops themselves. That is one reason geothermal can get a little more expensive, but in the long run, it is worth every dollar. I promise you. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not I'm not getting anything out of these. If you go out and buy a Geo or something like that, not my problem if you want to do it or not. But geothermal really is efficient. It really is worth every dollar, and you really will make every dollar back that you spend on it. If I was going to go out and build a new home tomorrow, I promise you it would have geothermal in it and nothing else. I wouldn't even hesitate to think about a different option. I've worked on a lot of different types of heat and a lot of different types of cooling as far as best bang for your buck, most comfortable, most efficient, most a unit that's going to give you the best longevity, all that kind of stuff. Geo is where it's at. Again, the price tag is up there, but it's worth every dollar, I promise. So those are your three main types. You've got vertical, horizontal, and pond loop. And then you add in the fourth, call it open loop or closed loop system. So if you have anything else, I appreciate, and now that I say it, I forget what his name is. I apologize if you're watching this video. I was going to give you a shout out for recommending this video, and now that I say that and I'm doing the video, I completely forgot. So either way, this one's for you. And if anybody has anything else they would like to talk about with geothermal, just let me know. I'd like to do several of these videos on geo. So if you have something, if you have questions, ask me. And on the comments, I would be more than happy to do the videos on them. If not, thank you. God bless.